Okay, 203, 66.6. The number of the beast. So I will call the meeting of the Curriculum and Instruction Committee to order. The first thing that we're going to do is get some information and discussion about the 100-day plan updates.
Yeah.
Yes, so.
I had a chance to read through those, yeah.
I can just run through. Heidi is unable to join us today, so I will take care of running through hers, which is the first big rock, which is student achievement and learning outcomes. So you've seen what the 3 to 5 year plan is, as well as some actionable steps. Some things that we've already taken care of in the first 30 days, and that will lead into, the month of September, is that all of our professional learning community teams have been established. Our building principals have been trained on professional learning communities, so there'll be ongoing support that helps navigate that process. So we make sure that, again, we'll have common expectations, common agendas. Everybody's been on the same page. All buildings did a big PLC rollout during in-service week, so that was really great. Also during in-service week, we implemented some large-scale new curriculum professional development. So our elementary teachers had literacy training, our middle school and high school teachers all had new ELA curriculum training. Our social studies department at the middle and high school level all had training through their new curriculum resource that they adopted, as well as our world language team. So we've had a number of teachers engaging in a significant amount of professional development for at least the last couple of weeks and earlier into August, which has been really great. As we move into the next 30 to 60 days, there will be some follow-up and follow-through around expectations and observations of PLC meetings. So our building principals will serve as collaborative team coaches. They'll go in and be able to help teams assess where they are and where they want to go, and give some specific feedback around how to grow instructionally using student data, and really refine the process of collaborative teams. So that is pretty exciting work. We'll continue to have our building administrators get up to speed on our new curricular tools that we've adopted, so that building principals, though they may not be content specialists, have enough knowledge to be dangerous and can go into classrooms and they can know what to look for in regard to what best practices are in implementing the new English curriculum or the new math curriculum. So you might not be a math expert per se, but you'll know what you're looking for in these areas. And then we get into our October-ish, our sort of our last stretch of the 90 days or 100 days as we're calling it, when report cards will be released from the state of Wisconsin. So supporting our building leaders and digging into their individual report card data, in addition to looking at our own internal assessment data and seeing how things are measuring up, and again, being able to review our 100-day building goals and make sure that the work that we're doing is supporting, some of this new report card information that we have, and going from there. So sort of the highlights of that.
Leadership teams play a major role in this whole process, and I'd like to know how they are composed and who's on.
So typically we have the quasi-administrative team in every building, which it usually is made up of our school counselors. We now have school social workers. We have instructional coaches in every building, and then we have some deans of students. So that's sort of like the core team.
Sure.
And then most buildings have a specialist rep, so an EL rep or a special ed rep on those building leadership teams. And then teachers, classroom teachers who are interested in leadership opportunities. It's nice to have sort of everybody, either from a grade level represented or somebody from, if there's a person who feels passionate about math and like that's sort of their forte as an elementary teacher, then we would ask them to serve on those leadership teams.
Okay.
So, a building like guiding coalition or leadership team is sometimes volunteers, sometimes voluntold. Just wanna have a nice cross representation of
So what are there,
different
about 8
professionals.
people on that?
At the secondary level, we have department chairs.
Oh, yeah,
Department chairs.
secondary.
Yeah,
level, it's much-
yeah.
Yeah, it's bigger. Yeah, okay, okay, good.
So I'm gonna, the best laid plans of mice and men, right? We always, at the beginning of the year, talk about how we're gonna accomplish this. How do we ensure that the people who are going in to observe actually get the time to do that? And because, I mean,
Oh,
that's,
yeah, that's good.
is it okay if I come in for 5 minutes? Sure, you do whatever you need to. I've seen that in my classroom. Okay, so how do we make sure that the teachers that do need that help, that need that extra, like, oh, here's some ideas, how do we ensure that that time is spent that way?
Yeah, that's really on us and our team to
Okay.
make sure that our building principals are getting in and spending enough time in classrooms, especially with those teachers that need support and our new people.
Right.
We've talked a lot about calendaring. You can't
Oh,
really
okay, good.
do anything unless it's in your calendar. So,
Plan
you know,
ahead.
being really intentional about making sure your calendar matches your priorities. We have systems of accountability in all of our regular meetings with our building admin to say, like, talk to me about your EE observations. What's your progress that you're making? We'll have a new platform that we roll out where we'll be able to go in and make sure that, you know, there's regular ongoing feedback that's being documented and we can monitor that. We also have a shared system for reporting out PLC observations and team meetings, so, but that's on us. I mean,
Yeah,
okay.
that's on us to hold.
Professional learning communities.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna ask about the observations too, consistent observations between directors and administrators. Who's observing who?
So it's really it's a coaching model for our collaborative
Oh,
team.
okay.
So our building principals are serving as PLC coaches. Some very research-based effective feedback for teachers is not just giving feedback to an individual teacher in isolation, but being able to collectively give teachers
Oh, yeah,
feedback
that's
about
good.
how they're
Yeah,
working
that's really
together.
good.
So the building principals will go in and conduct those observations and have those conversations and give feedback. We'll do some co-observing with our building principals. We call it like calibrating around an observation and giving feedback so that we can practice that all together. But
That's
ultimately,
good, yeah.
we did that last year and it was really, it's really great. Just
Right.
do some co-observing and then talk about the observation after and calibrate around what kind of feedback we'd give. So that was really impactful.
And I
So
think
it's
that,
not the spooky stuff where somebody pops into your room and sits in the back and.
I mean, it's a little
Yeah,
spooky.
It's a little spooky.
We try to give a heads up.
Yeah,
that we're
that
coming.
never bothered me, but I'm on stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, so because I think,
Some people
with-
it doesn't matter.
right, with as many new admin people as we have, I think that's gonna be an excellent thing for them. And then, this is, my understanding, is also gonna be happening with the teachers, because the research shows teachers leave within 3 to 5 years, the profession.
yeah.
You know, so the more they feel like they're seen and helped and empowered, I think this is a good model then, as long as we are giving that time.
Really are focused on really good quality feedback.
Right.
You know, and that's.
And growth, it's the growth
Exactly.
mindset, keep
And
that in the
not a-
forefront.
There's
Yeah.
a mantra from our PLC training, that Thomas Beatty says, and it's not about finding what's wrong, it's about finding what's next. So,
Oh,
Yeah.
you know, we're not looking for things that are wrong, we're just looking
Mm-hmm.
for things that we can do next to improve. And I think that's a really, really good motto
That's
to
right,
live
yeah.
by.
Okay,
Makes feedback a lot less, I don't know, feeling like
Right.
it's negative or personal. Anything else about the student achievement? And Heidi would do a much better job explaining all of that than I did, so
that's fine.
that was my attempt.
That's good.
Our next student learning, really Office of Curriculum and Instruction and Student Services, Big Rock, is the school culture and student well-being, also known as behavior. Nice way to talk about
What are restorative practices? What is that?
So those are in lieu of or in support of punishment and consequences.
Oh.
What we try to do is we try to build the skills of students so that they don't repeat the events.
Okay.
So it's, teaching a behavioral expectation or teaching a behavioral strategy so that they don't continue to repeat the same negative behaviors that are landing them in some trouble, so.
I apologize, I have to call in Mr. Abel.
I didn't know if you're just making a phone call.
I thought I drove on
Well,
speaker too.
hey,
He's gonna participate by phone?
Yeah,
Oh, really?
are you there, Chris?
Absolutely, I'm sorry for the delay.
No worries. Right now, we just walked through, the 100-day plan for student achievement and learning outcomes, and we just began to walk through the school culture and well-being 100-day plan.
Okay,
all right. Hi, Mr. Abel. It's Katie Eichman.
hello.
So we have recently adopted a new social emotional learning
Yeah.
curriculum at the elementary level called Character Strong. So our staff participated in Character Strong training last week during in-service week. Our teachers will have an instructional component in that, and then our school counselors and our school social workers.
Is that
will
new in place of what you started last year?
So SFA, if you remember,
No, I
had,
don't mean SFA.
well, but it
It had a
had,
component.
it had an.
I know it
SEL.
did, but you were looking at a program last year.
This is what we adopted.
This is it,
This
okay,
is what
this
we,
is
yeah,
it,
Character
okay.
Strong is
Yeah,
what we
okay,
adopted.
okay.
Yep. So, that was implemented and some PD started this last week. Last year, there was work done to sort of revamp our school and our student code of conduct. So there was more of an elementary version created and a high school version created. And then we did some work this summer to identify what would be considered minors and majors, and that will become important because as we roll out EduClimber, which is our new data warehouse that will house all things attendance and behavior and academic intervention and all the things in a beautiful dashboard. We need to be very clear about how we're documenting different behaviors and what constitutes a minor, which means it's being dealt with typically by the classroom teacher in school, or a major, which is usually when a principal intervenes and there's some kind of exclusionary disciplinary practice that happens as a result. So we did some revamping of those things, making sure that our principal team is up to speed and consistent about what happens, what are some options for intervening for minor behaviors, and what are sort of our guidelines around a major behavior, and when we need to have an out of school suspension, or when we need to have an in school suspension, or when there would be something more serious like involving law enforcement. So we got consistent around that. A ton of our buildings through the 100-day plan work worked on identifying. Most of our buildings, I think their 100-day plan goal around behaviors is about school-wide expectations and implementing those and teaching and reteaching and reinforcing those school-wide expectations. So again, the goal would be in a restorative way to be super intentional about teaching what is expected in all of our buildings, and then not having students, having the ability to intervene then when students aren't meeting those expectations. So that's a big focus, and we'll be following up and working with CISA 7, who will be, Katie Tennyson from CISA 7 will be going into buildings and supporting those school-wide expectation systems and helping teams think about interventions and next steps and things like that. So that'll be great.
And one thing I quick want to just clarify, at the beginning you said it's something about no consequences, but there are consequences, and I think our audience needs to hear that. There are consequences if you break that relationship. So it's like you've broken
absolutely.
the relationship with your community, you've got to do something restorative to get that relationship back to the community.
Hence the term.
Right.
Yeah, we call it like make it right plans.
Make it
So
right,
you
yeah.
disrupt your learning environment, there are consequences, but then we also want to put some restorative practices in place to say,
Right.
how now are you going to make this right? And what are you?
Yeah, that's a much
So it's
better,
not just
much better than straight punishment, which is the red badge of courage for
Correct.
a lot of kids.
Yeah.
we use a tying shoe analogy a lot. So if a kid doesn't know how to tie their shoe, you don't leave them with their shoe untied and tell them to go sit in the corner until
Oh,
they figure it
yeah,
out.
yeah,
You work through how to tie your shoe and
Honestly,
figure that
that's
out,
good.
so.
The
I was a
immediate
kid that
goal,
went to school and didn't know how to tie my shoe.
the immediate goal is to cut down recidivism.
Yeah,
know,
no, that's
Exactly,
good.
exactly. Yeah. So then as we keep going beyond the first 30 days, again, we'll have the support from the CISA team and Katie Tennyson. We will have our, what we really wanna try to do is keep growing our multi-level system of support. So the first tier is universal, where we're teaching expectations and we're repeating teaching those expectations and those kinds of things. The second tier then is maybe for a group of students who just aren't quite there. So what do we need to do differently to be able to make sure that they can be successful in school? And that's sort of a tier 2 level of support. They might need an extra small group session with maybe a school counselor every once in a while, something like that. And then we go as far as to have tier 3 interventions, which is going to be for a much more smaller group of students who are really struggling. And they'll have a very specific targeted intervention in order to help them work through whatever it is specifically that they're working on. And we'll have that
So,
data collected.
In teaching expectations, you kind of create a consensus among the students as to what's right and what's inappropriate. And does that bring about peer pressure sort of influences?
There's modeling is a great strategy, so putting students who struggle to follow expectations around students who know how to do that really well, is always a great strategy. Kids watch and they are cognizant about how they fit into their peers,
right.
so that's a great strategy. If you would walk into any building in these first 2 weeks of school, you'll see kids practicing with their teachers how to walk in the hallway, what the specific
yeah,
expectations
okay,
of
that's
walking
good,
in the
that's
hallway,
good.
how to go to the bathroom, what the expectations are in the bathroom. Lincoln's doing it in homeroom right now in a different way than the they don't walk through the halls with their teacher, however, they listen to expectations, in their homeroom for the first 2 weeks of school, so we
that's
really
good.
try to get out in front of, that teaching
This morning I
piece.
was at Jackson and they had 2 classes together in the hall and they were explaining the procedures for lunch. Right down to the details of how you carry your tray and where you put your milk and all the things with that, so, that's what these first, few days are full
I
of.
was at Washington this morning for their all-school assembly, and they were talking about the Wolf Way, and the Wolf Way includes 5 different character
At Washington,
expectations.
yeah, wow, that's a whole new regime.
Yeah, it was awesome, it was awesome. So that's happening all over right now, and that will
Yeah.
continue to happen. And then so continue to develop our multi-level system of support. And then, refining our system of communication. So how are we communicating with families? How are we sharing out, how things are going as far as student behaviors are concerned in the district, those kinds of things. And then our last 30 days, Katie will be working with teams about identifying a restorative practice or 2, a research-based best practice, that we can really say we're giving this a go building-wide or, level-wide, all elementary buildings will maybe try the same 1 or 2. Then we'll be able to talk about the effectiveness and the goal in that is to really build the toolbox of our teachers so that they have the skills they need to address challenging student behavior.
Well, yeah, this looks, I like what I see in this. I mean, the whole thing about fostering a sense of accountability is much better than the old, an eye for an eye, sort of,
Oh, I think, we talk a lot about culture and pride this year, and if kids take pride in themselves and their
Yeah,
school
for sure.
community and feel that they're positively contributing to that, that goes a long way in promoting really positive student behaviors. So we need them to believe that they are a positive contributor, and that's part of the making it right? You do something, it's okay, we all screw up, but we're gonna make it right, and we have to make that right, so.
In terms of the draft here, I mean, if this is the draft, there's one persistent error. in that it says develop a tired support framework, which is
Say tiered.
instead of tiered, and it's also repeated like in the third part of the phase 2 thing.
Oh.
Tired is,
Yep.
tired
Don't
says sort of
think
the
we
wrong
want a
signal. I
tired.
think, yeah.
That is definitely not the best.
But then it's tiered in the tiered framework probably
Yeah,
in schools, so
okay, well,
it's
yes.
obviously that, you know, it's one of those things that the computer doesn't get. You know, because tired is legitimately a word and it's spelled correctly. But it's the wrong word for this,
Yeah, it is the wrong word, so
Yeah.
thank you for catching that.
yeah, well, yeah.
So as to
That's
not
why,
implement a tired system,
Yeah,
any other questions about that?
No, thank you very much for that. This is, I think this is gonna be a good
We're excited.
way to work through stuff, yeah.
yeah, I like, I mean, I kind of like the planning process too, you know, it's like, it just says, okay, this is the game. And, you know, we'll blow the whistle and it'll start and we're gonna do this stuff.
And then we'll be able to bring to you, after these first really 90 days, data specific to all of these actionables, walk through that and then let you know how the plan has changed. Stayed the same, improved, all the things, so.
Doesn't this have to be a relief to teachers?
I-
It's like,
The feedback that I've gotten
You
is
know,
that they
it's-
appreciate the, you know, the clear direction, the
because,
the
you know,
expectations.
the normal process in the old days was, well, you go in and you make mistakes for like the first 3 years or something like that, and you talk to other people and they say, no, you don't do that. So you're like 45 years old before you're really good at it. You know what I mean?
I also like that it kind of pares things down. It's not like going, here's the 10 things that we're gonna implement right now.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
here's the
yeah,
2 that
that's
we're gonna
right,
focus
that's
on, let's
right.
see what happens, then we'll move from there. That's so much
Yeah.
we need to teach
I
them.
think, you know, we have such great educators and really eager new people that the opportunity to say, we're gonna support you instructionally in this way, in the first big rock. And then we also are gonna support you that you know what to expect in the event that a student is struggling. You know what to expect from your building administrators, you know that we're gonna try to give you tools for that to, you know, ultimately, all of these things will just make their jobs, most important jobs in front of kids, all the more easy. Which is the ultimate goal, and that it's just when you know what to expect, I think it's just easier to go in every day and feel like you have what you need to do your job. So the goal would be that all of these things just helps our great teachers be able to be their best in front of kids.
Cool.
Thank you. We are on to seclusion and restraint.
That's me again.
Is that-
So seclusion and restraint, we have to provide a report annually, that gives data, shares our data from seclusion and restraint from the previous year. So this is 24-25, seclusion and restraint data. And, just as a reminder, seclusion and restraint can only be utilized by certified staff as an absolute last result when students are presenting an imminent danger to themselves or others. So it is a very much a last resort technique, when students are engaging in incredibly dangerous behavior. So that's, first things first, we do have a pretty robust system of training, most of our staff, in nonviolent crisis intervention. And for the last few years, all of our staff have been trained in sort of in de-escalation strategies, not the hands-on piece, but the precursor to recognizing signs of anxiety in kids. So we really do try to make sure that our teachers are very equipped with tools to deal with children who are engaging in some pretty difficult behaviors. We had a grand total of 109 seclusions and incidents of seclusion and or restraint last year. That is down from the previous year, which is a celebration. Again, I think our work and efforts on restorative practices and de-escalation strategies and relationship building is,
It was 23-24 when we were shut down.
no,
What year was that? Because there was only 100 there.
2021.
Oh, wow, that's far. Okay,
Yep.
2021, okay.
Yep. So that data has fallen off of our 3-year trajectory. But you'll notice that we, you know, most of the time, if you look at the number of students involved in these incidents, it's repeat students. So there are typically
Yeah,
a
sure.
couple of very struggling students, who, you know, physically resort to, you know, that's how they cope, before they learn some other more effective coping
Yeah, there
strategies.
was only like 5 regular students in the,
Yeah.
on the restraint stuff, I mean, so that, honestly, the same kids were being restrained over and over again, so.
So the goal is that number always decreases. We would like that to be 0. You know, having to isolate
Yeah,
a student
yeah,
or put hands on a student is just not ever anyone's preferred method, but it is it is a safety measure. You'll notice the buildings with the highest incidence are where our most severe programming takes place. So the buildings where we have specialized programming for students who demonstrate very outwardly.
You mean the
physical-
MCCP program? I talked to Lee about that, and I got a call on that. And it's like, wow, here are the numbers, and I can understand why somebody was, upset about that.
And students move to that program typically because of a, you know, physically outward manifesting behavioral disability, so, yeah, so, we have to work through that. Yeah, those are, you know, grateful for the teachers who work in those very specialized programs because they work, our
That's-
teachers
they're all-
and our
they're all
support staff are incredible in
elementary
those
kids too, aren't
programs. Pardon?
They're all elementary kids, aren't they?
1st through 8th grade.
Yeah, first.
But yeah, the staff in those programs are incredible, and they just help kids work through behaviors, and you know, they have great data to show too by the end of the year that their rates of, you know, those outward behaviors significantly decline, so.
Yeah. Oh, really, huh? Mm-hmm. Oh. Whoa, yeah.
Now, out of curiosity, does Ron Colley system have to report any of this stuff out?
Oh,
Lutheran system have to report any of this out?
I doubt it, so,
Okay, interesting.
yeah, no kidding.
I don't believe they do, I don't know that they have to be certain.
Just wanted that out in the public here.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
think that's it
Hopefully
for
those
me.
numbers will keep the downward trajectory.
Yep, that's the hope, thank you very much.
Next, we are going to skip over and move to next month, preliminary K-12 assessment results, because Heidi is out today. So now, number 5, designate early college credit program coordinator.
Yeah, so every year we get to designate, typically in districts, the high school principal to serve as that coordinator. And so the recommendation of the district is to appoint Mr. Micah Hoffman, principal of Lincoln High School, into that role, formerly known as Youth Options Coordinator.
Yeah,
So,
right.
yeah, you always remember that
I
every
remember that
every
one.
year. Yeah. So we're asking the committee and then the board to do that this month.
Oh,
I
sure,
would move to
yeah.
do so.
I move that we do that.
Got a motion and a second. Or further discussion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay. That's logical, let's do
Right,
it.
yeah. Congratulations, Mr. Hoffman, on
Yes.
securing this role yet again.
He got something else to do, too.
And doesn't he just have to sign something probably?
He has to sign off on the early college,
Right.
yep, proposals, yeah.
Okay. And then we have a Rising Phoenix update.
Yeah, so, and again, I apologize for the,
You have something else?
I think, does everybody have?
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought I gave it, do you need one? So UWGB, has asked the district to essentially be part of their Board of Trustees meeting. They have this annual meeting where they invite, some faculty and some guests to basically do an annual report
Yeah,
and
we go to, yeah.
yeah, so they've asked us to show up and provide some insights on the Rising Phoenix program and how it's worked in our district, and the impacts.
You're talking.
And the impacts it's having on the community. So, in preparation for that, we put some statistics together and wanted to, share with the board, some different numbers here with the Rising Phoenix program. Again, just so that you're all in the loop on what it is and how it runs. As most of you probably are aware, it's kids coming into their junior year who apply basically to be dually enrolled in high school and college at the same time, in this particular case through UW Green Bay. And since its inception in 2020, when we had our first kids signing up, we've had 25 students in the cohort, this last year moving that up to 30 students in the cohort. So picturing
For next year, right?
for this year, and
This
we
year,
started it with the class of 2026.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there'll be 60 students total in the program, junior, senior, in the full-fledged Rising Phoenix program. The program has received more interest than slots. And of course, one thing I want to be clear is UWGB makes the call on entrance into the program. We provide the information, we provide the criteria, the program is intended to affect as many first-generation college kids as possible. That's the way it was designed. And as you can see on the statistics, one thing I'm proud of is from its inception up until the class of 26, we've increased the number of kids who meet that criteria.
Yeah, that's good.
And this year, happily saying there's 28 out of the 30 in the class.
That's really good, isn't it?
Yeah, and one of the reasons that's so important is if you page to the next data set over the criteria, that it's the number of students who continued with their post-secondary education. Why do you focus on first generation? Well, because they don't know this system. They haven't been exposed.
It's like
Now
a
they're
seamless
exposed.
transition.
Yeah, and so you'll see one of the things that besides the grade point average, which I think is also
I
exceptional.
was gonna say the grade
Yeah.
point, which is pretty cool.
We look at 20 out of 20 kids in the class of 22 went on to continue their post-secondary. As a matter of fact, I'll make the statistics real simple. Only one student has not continued on with their post-secondary education since the inception of the program. You can certainly see the financial impact that it has. The easiest way to think about this is the district's really able, even to this, because we have, this year we'll have about 38 students who are in the self-pay program. So these are kids who didn't meet the criteria or get accepted. So they have the option of joining the program, but it's self-funded, which basically means we pass on the discount that we get, which you see here. So the district currently in our memorandum of understanding pays nope, not a dollar anymore, $128.65
Yeah, right.
per credit hour, as opposed to a traditional student attending is $362.50. Huge savings.
It's pretty big, isn't
Huge
it?
savings. Keeping in mind too that kids who are signing up for the self-pay program, when they're entering this, every kid gets 18 credits that are covered through the ECC program. And again, we get reimbursement on some of that. So, as we're spending, some dollars and investing into these students' college education, we're also receiving some reimbursement on that too. So it's a real, you don't find things that you'd call win-win-win. In this case, we do, because kids are, getting a chance to get a leg up as opposed to in the past. When this option really wasn't there for them. So we're excited about that. We have a total of 98, yep.
Your own student body too, like, Green Bay is the only, well, I think Stevens Point is better now, but Green Bay was the only UW campus, other than Madison, that was having an increase in enrollment.
Yep.
Most of the others are still struggling to.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stories in these statistics, but I'm hoping you see the success part of this, because one of the things we hear about a little bit too, and with our achievement gap, which is true, We have a large number of students who are not hitting grade level on some of their things, which we want to vastly improve. But this also will go to show you that these students who, maybe socially, economically in a difficult spot, plus first generation college are being highly successful in this environment.
Yeah, that's
The key to this partnership is that UWGB, when we started this, really put, I will say, their money where their mouth was in terms of student support. So these student support coaches that are lined up to basically help monitor kids' progress, work very closely with the school's counselors and administrative team to stay very on top of these kids and their success. And so kudos to them in this, is that not only did they start doing it, sometimes you get in those agreements with people, and I've known this over the years. You get into an agreement like this and things sort of like, over time, not the case.
Get more relaxed, yeah.
Not the case here. They have been diligent about supporting our kids, and we couldn't ask for better partners. They always work with us on the accounting side of things, and because we take care of the bill, and then we have people pay us. Because essentially they're using our rate to get the tuition reduction. So.
Yeah, there's quite a high number of free and reduced too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is this time.
Correct, it's getting up there. Yeah.
That's like really that's really a really good beacon.
So I'd be happy to entertain any questions anyone would have.
So I just want to know how they, I know when it was the opportunity thing, I'd have quite a few students actually that come in from Valders and from Lincoln.
Yep.
A few from Two Rivers, and they would be just in the class, but
Yep.
I would know who they were so that I could contact and work with them if they needed any help. But how does it work now? Do they go to
Still do
Green
it.
Bay to take courses?
They can still do that, yeah. So for example, last year my daughter took a night class at UWGB campus here in Manitowoc.
Okay, yeah.
And so that works just through like the ECCP program. They're covered up to 18 credits. Typically what we would say, let's say that Katie wanted to take calculus, right? She
never wanted
would be able to take calculus
wanted to, yeah.
at the college
Yeah.
if we didn't offer it. So it's basically, if they want to take if we offer the class,
That's
we
right.
want them to take it with us.
That's right.
But, so that's kind of what we need Mr. Hoffman for in a previous action, when you appointed him to do this. It's his ultimate responsibility to make sure that the kids are signing up for things that
In their
will
program
count
place.
towards
Exactly.
the program without,
Exactly.
like, oh, well, we actually have this. And there were times where I
This
had.
isn't eroding AP courses, is it?
I would have to look at those numbers.
Yeah.
We still have a robust offering of AP at the high
that's
school
a really
level.
good
I think my son has 2 or 3 of them this year. So they're, and they, he's chosen to go that route versus this route.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, we have all
Tell them
of
to
it.
save you some money,
Yeah.
yeah,
I tried talking him into it.
yeah. Yeah. Okay, it's a great program.
That's it. Well, excellent, though, that was the last item on our agenda for the day.
Yeah,
Anything else to say?
it was good. I moved for adjournment.
Okay. We have a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Yeah, just aye.
Okay.
I got it.
We will see.
Who did the first motion? David?
Well, I was all up with it.